Today's episode is brought to you by Bones Coffee Company. You can forget about pouring coffee when you drink Bones Coffee. Not only do they offer a variety of flavors such as strawberry cheesecake and maple bacon, they are a family-owned company that puts great detail not only in their coffee, but in the artwork that comes on each individual bag. Bones Coffee has a coffee club that will deliver your favorite coffee to your door every month. If that wasn't enough, they also have some amazing swag to offer. Check out Bones Coffee Company today. I'll have my affiliate links in the show notes for you. Hi guys. Hi guys, how are you? Got a frog in my throat, I guess. So I have a few people signed on and been signed on for a while. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that. I've got my two favorite co-hosts on the line. I've got fellow crime writer and victims advocate, Cricket Andrews. How are you, Cricket?
Good. Hi, everyone. Hope you're having a good night.
I've also got my favorite research assistant, Tammy, on the line. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back.
Absolutely. Yes, we missed you last week. For those of you that didn't see last week's show, we were minus a co-host because Miss Tammy, my research assistant, had to go to jury duty. And so, that was a fun, not so fun experience for her. But we're glad to have her back. Hello, Barbara, James, Venus, Billy, all of you, Karen, all of you girls and guys that are watching. Thank you so much for signing on. Hi, Marion. All of you that are watching, I've got a number on the screen that doesn't match my comments. So if you would like a shout out, make sure and say something in the comments and we will try to say hello as soon as we can. Now, you are watching True Crime Tuesday, and tonight we have a strange case from 1910, and it's actually a triple homicide that has never been solved. And it starts out with a young 18-year-old woman named Janie Sharp. Now, Janie Sharp lived in a town that I'm not going to be able to say very well. It's called Rural Hill Community in Mississippi. Now, in 1910, she was 18 years old. She was actually engaged to a man named Earl Ray, and she was living her quiet life in this area. She had helped her mom clean up the lunch dishes and pick up the house, and then she was walking 1.5 miles into town to go to the general store. Now, this community had a post office, 2 general stores, a schoolhouse, and a Methodist church. This was the big town that she was headed to. Now, she was walking to town. She was going to go by the post office, pick up any packages that were there. She was going to run by the general store, and then she was going to go to a man's house named, I believe it was Carl Ray. Let me check my notes. Cyrus Ray. Now, Cyrus Ray was the uncle to her fiance. She was going to go by there and pick up some sewing projects. So this was her plan. She had left that little community store. She left that approximately 3 p.m. And she had 1.5 miles to make it home. She was going to stop by Mr. Ray's house to pick up some sewing projects, and then she was supposed to head home. She was supposed to be home well before dark. So when dark came around and she wasn't home, her mother started getting worried. Now, her body would not be found until 2 a.m. Her body was found with a short distance from her house, but her body was found. She had been hit in the back of the head extremely hard. She had also been kind of stabbed and slashed in the throat to where she was nearly from ear to ear. And unfortunately, her brother actually would find her. So this is a disturbing tale. And if that wasn't enough, we're going to start telling you a story about a lynch mob who goes after what seems to be the wrong guy. You're going to see the Mississippi Supreme Court jumping in to save this man from being hung. You're going to also find out that 2 more people are going to be killed and nobody's going to know anything in this rural community. So this is one of those stories where you're thinking 109 years ago, 3 people were killed in this area. And we still don't know for sure who did it. We might have some ideas. And I think, well, why are you talking about this case? Who cares? It's 109 years old. Well, I happen to email this out to my audience through my mailing list. And if you're not on my mailing list, make sure you get on there. I will post a link to where you can get on my email list. But I sent this out to all of my followers on my email list that get my Racketeer newsletter. Well, when I did, I immediately got a response back of someone who actually lived in that area, and his grandpa or his grandma knew Janie Sharp. So he's like, it's this small world. So there's still people over there debating on who did this. There's still family members left on both sides of the fence here. And so this is still a hot topic, even though it's 109 years old. It would be nice if we could somehow figure out who actually did this and maybe clear the name of the man that the lynch mob went after so hard. So guys, I'm going to let you jump in. Cricket, what did you think of this case when we first started? I'm going to run over and grab my link to my mailing list so I can share that real quick.
Well, I love this case. I love old cases simply because back then they didn't have anything that we use today to help solve crimes. In fact, the fingerprinting was in its infancy. So that's why I like these kind of cases, because you have to use your head and common sense because you have nothing else to go by.
Right. I do. I find it interesting, that these cases are still unsolved, and these cases people are still talking about them. People still care about them.
Some of the cases I have read up on from like the 1700s could easily be solved.
Yeah.
But back then,
well, and all these things could be solved, and then of course, I just shared the link. Every week I send out a email newsletter called The Racketeer, just to give you different cases that I'm working on and giving you updates and things. I usually just email once or maybe twice a week. So if you're not on that mailing list, make sure and get on it, because that's where you're going to get advance notices of when I've got books and things coming out. That's when you're going to get information on events that I'm doing and get freebies. So make sure, look in the comments and get signed up for that email newsletter. But I agree with you, Cricket.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think these cases, my first thought was when you first go through this case and you're thinking, you first go and you're like, no, why did you disturb the crime scene? And then you think it's 1910.
Yeah.
They were getting the body out of that muddy creek area and taking it home to clean it up and get it ready for burial. So I'm sitting here going, no, don't disturb the crime scene. And then they're like, well, here's the footprints. And I'm like, well, how do you know that they were footprints of the bad guy? Because you guys stomped all over it. So you really have to disconnect yourself from the forensic mindset, because that's not the way they did things.
And even with the hound dogs, the one young man, he said, they're going to track me because I was in the woods. Like, they didn't even have that concept of how these dogs work.
Well, and they weren't even trained scent dogs. They're not like we have now, where they have the canine unit for the police department. These were just random farmers' dogs. They're like, we're going to track him. Okay.
Yeah, they weren't.
Yeah. So this is great. Okay, so Tammy, what did you think of this case? Because this case is going to be completely different. It's so different than what we've normally talked about. So
I thought it was unusual for this kind of a thing to happen in 1910 in a rural area. And
I think it was unusual for them. Yeah.
There's a lot of details and people involved, and it was kind of hard to get it all in my mind and follow it. There's
Absolutely.
So many twists in it. And I was actually starting to agree with the mob. I was thinking that Swinton was guilty. until it come to trial, and they started pointing out all the things that didn't add up. So
Yeah.
I could have been in that flash mob. Who knows?
You would have been in the Tammy. I can see you in the flash mob with the pitchforks. Okay, so let's get into this. Okay, so thank you guys. Hello, True Crime Web. Hello, James. Hello, Barbara. Hello, all of you guys. Lewis, if I've missed you, I'm sorry. Hello, Joanne. If I've missed you, I apologize. I will try to catch you later. So, okay, so Janie Sharp, she was found a couple miles from her house. Now, the disturbing thing about this was everybody had worked really hard at all the farmers around there. They got a collection of men together as soon as this 18-year-old girl went missing. They got a collection of good old boys, and we're talking 1910. There was no flashlights. There was no cell phones with lights. They actually had to get torches. So they're out there looking, tramping through the woods, tramping through the creek beds, everything, through fields, through farms, trying to find Janie. Now, they're doing this by torchlight. By about midnight or so, they're like, okay, we're going to have to call it a day. We'll come back again, and we'll hit it again at daylight. Well, her brother couldn't stand that fact, so he kept searching. Well, about 2 a.m., he finds her by torchlight. Now, I'm not sure, because, Cricket, you and I have talked about this before. This man found her by torchlight, and she was in a very bad way. She had been stabbed in the throat a few times, and she had been hit in the back of the head. And it was a very disturbing scene for anybody to see. But they were saying that seeing it flicker by torchlight would make it even more traumatizing. But whatever the case is, this brother supposedly fainted. And then when he came to, he ran home to his dad, and his dad came and found his daughter, picked her up, and carried her home. Now, even more disturbing is the fact this dad had palsy and could barely walk, and he was trying to carry the body of his daughter home. So this is a dreadful, horrible scene that you can think of. I'm not sure why the brother didn't carry her home, if he was too small, if he was injured. I don't know, if he was just panicking. But here you have a dad with palsy trying to carry his 18-year-old deceased daughter home. And so, but as modern true crime investigators, we know that by doing that, he completely compromised that crime scene. So they go back the next morning. And they find that there was 3 different places where the ground had been disturbed. It looked as if right by the little road that she may have, either at one point, one place said that she may have been hit by a car, and then drug off. Another report said that that's where they attacked her and then drug her off into the woods. She escaped, and they attacked her again. It looked as if she had fought hard. But so we've got 3 crime scenes that have been completely trampled over. You have dogs that have run through the crime scenes. You have humans that have run through the crime scenes. And now the body has been removed and taken to the home to be cleaned and prepped for burial. So there is nothing left at this crime scene to really indicate who or what. They do find some footprints, and they supposedly take measurements of these footprints. But by this time, you've got a group of people starting to build up a resentment against one local boy named Swinton. What's his name? I got to look it up.
Permenter.
Permenter. Yeah. Permenter. There you go. Swinton Permenter. So we're just going to call him SP. So Mr. SP is an 18-year-old boy who knew of Janie Sharp. And for some reason, they decide that they wanted to accuse him. Now, they say that he was acting suspicious during the investigation and the looking for the body. They said that he had looked over the area where her body was, the general area, and had told other people not to look there because he had already checked out that location. You also find out that his boot prints supposedly match the boot prints that were found in that area. You'll also hear that he had her handkerchief that she supposedly had with her that day, that he had it on his person. When he went home, everybody went home just after midnight, except for the brother who kept looking. They said that Swinton went home and suspiciously he washed off on the front porch, which I guess was what you do back then when you didn't have running water. He took his bath of sorts on the front porch. He cleaned up and changed his clothes. Well, by morning, everybody was saying the Swinton guy, he was suspicious. Then comes the rumor mill where they say, well, he had a thing for Janie and he hated her father because her father refused to let him date her. And so he had threatened the father and he wanted to date Janie. Now, we're going to back up. There was another suspicious thing that happened in the middle of all of this. Right when Janie is reported missing, you find out that her father calls and finds out if there was any marriage license issued. So his first thought was maybe his daughter had ran off and eloped. Now, this is odd considering her fiance was part of the search team. Now, later on, he would find out that her fiance was the search team. But according to the newspaper reports, the first one said that he believed he checked that out because he thought maybe Swinton had got the marriage license against his will. And they tried to pin that on Swinton. Then we'll find out that none of that was true, that perhaps the father did that before he realized that her fiance was actually a part of the search party. So that's an odd little strange tidbit to throw in there. So by morning, everybody is saying the Swinton guy, yeah, it's him. So they run their dogs. They run their dogs across this crime scene, and they say, okay, track this down. So those dogs go all over the place and somehow end up at Swinton's house, which is not too far from Janie's house. And they all knew each other and had done things together recently at the 4th of July deal. And so the dogs went to that house. The dogs looked around, and one of the ladies like, oh, I think it acted funny around Swinton. And so this was the evidence that this man had against him. And they commandeered his clothes. They confiscated his clothes and his boots. And they said they found a woman's handkerchief and it was Janie's. They were 100% sure of it. And the police had to protect him because a lynch mob was formed and they were going to hang him in the trees just down the road from his house. They weren't going to let the police take this. So the police actually had to call neighboring communities to get more help to get Swinton to the local jail so they wouldn't kill him before trial. Now, this is where the story goes haywire. Now,
I found it funny too, though, Sonova, that with the dog,
yeah,
it wasn't Swinton standing by himself. There was a group of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and they said that the dog
pointed up.
Yeah, but there was like 3 or 4 people standing there, and this wasn't a trained dog, so there wasn't any trained dogs are trained to do specific things when they find that scent. You know, they may sit, they may point, they may do, they may act a certain way. These aren't trained dogs. These are just dogs. Okay.
Yeah, so, I don't even think that they trained dogs back then for that.
This was just dog.
The farm, the hound dogs for the hunting.
You ain't nothing but sorry. So anyway, so this Swinton Permenter, he was accused of this from the very beginning. So then the rumor mill kicks in. The whole town has him as a murderer. The whole town has manufactured all of these things. Now, you'll find out that they convicted him, sent him to prison. He was going to be hung. Well, he appealed. Well, the Supreme Court of Mississippi, they researched his case and they dropped it. Not only did they reverse it, they reprimanded that community for doing this. And so they reversed it on April 24th, 1911. and he was released on a $10,000 bond and was going to get another trial in another town, so many miles away. Hopefully that this one would work. Now, in this meantime, you have something that is going to come across. Ben Walker was an investigator that actually testified at the first trial. Well, he wasn't effective, and Swinton was convicted anyways. Well, Ben Walker comes in later and he starts his own investigation. So by November of 1911, he actually makes 2 arrests. He tracks down 2 guys out of Texas and hauls them back to Mississippi because he believes they are the ones that killed Janie Sharp. Now, one of them is Thomas McElroy, and one of them is Hewlett Ray. Now, both of these were nephews of Cyrus Ray, the man's house that she was going to. Okay. So these 2 gentlemen were about Janie's age, and they were actually there at the time. But then all of a sudden, after all of this went through, the whole town is going to lynch the wrong guy. These 2 guys skipped town. Okay. So this made Ben Walker suspicious. So he goes after these 2 boys. He hauls them back. Okay. By then their families had all moved down there. So all the family comes tramps him back. And they say that he's wrong. Well, the local judge basically laughs in Ben Walker's face, drops the charges against these boys, and immediately has Ben Walker arrested. Okay, so he has the detective arrested and says that, claiming that he was bribing witnesses. Okay, they never follow through with that. They never actually charge him with bribing witnesses. That was just their reason to arrest him. They dropped the charges on the 2 boys. But Walker, he's out on bond, and you'd think, okay, he's going to leave town. They have tried every which way to discredit this man, and they have dropped the charges against the 2 people he believes actually killed Janie, and then they're going to take it even a step further. So Walker stayed in the town, and he had gotten this information. There was a person in town by the last name of Vole. Albert, I think it's Albert Vole. Albert Vole is the one that gave him the witness statement that says, hey, wait a minute. There's 2 guys that were staying at Cyrus Ray's house. There's 2 guys that I know killed Janie. Okay. So he gave this witness statement, and that's where Ben Walker got the information from. And then he started investigating from there. Okay, so he's staying at this man's house while he continues the investigation. The whole town's against him. The judge is against him. The law enforcement, everyone's against him. They have discredited him, but he's sticking around because he believes in this case. Well, unfortunately, that would be a deadly decision for him, because on March 21st of 1911, Walker was sitting in front of a window reading a book at Mr. Vole's house. Okay. There was a little light. He had a little candle, and he was sitting there trying to read the book by the last little bit of daylight that was coming through the window. Just before dark, 2 men rode up on horses and shot him to death through the window and then rode off. Now, Mr. Vole grabbed his shotgun and tried to shoot back, but they were too far away. By the time he got his gun, the detective lay dead in the chair. Okay. Nobody investigated the detective's death. Nobody looked into it. They just let it go. Now, if that was the end of the story, that one is scary and sad enough. But here we go even further. Now, by August of 1912, so the next summer, Swinton is back up for his second trial. And of course, everybody in town's flooding in their horses and on their carriages, and they are hauling it the 60 or 90 miles it was to the nearby town that was supposed to be doing this. They are cramming in the courthouse. They are literally causing all kinds of problems because they are wanting to prove that this man is guilty. They're trying to make sure and influence everybody they can, to prove that this guy is guilty. They want this man to hang. They don't care if he's innocent or guilty. They're going to hang him anyways. Okay. Well, in the meantime, Swinton has a brother named Walter. Now, Walter was following the detective work really closely, and he had gotten all of the evidence that the detective had collected, the deceased detective. And Walker told everyone that he was going to testify on behalf of his brother using Ben Walker's evidence. Okay. He shouldn't have said that, because on August 12th, they were supposed to go the next day to the courthouse. They were staying with relatives in this other town. August 12th, 1912, him and Swinton both are staying with relatives. Well, Swinton goes to bed at 9 o'clock. He's tired. He's wanting to feel as good as he can for court the next day. So he goes to bed and tries to go to sleep. Walter goes outside. Now, we're talking 1912 here. So there's no water in the house. You have to go outside with your bucket and pump water, if you have a pump. If not, you're going to be, hauling it up, however they did it. He had to draw water. So his brother walks out of the house, around behind the house, to draw water. And he is shot by a shotgun and a man just inside the wooded tree line. Okay. So nobody could see who it was. Nobody knows who it was. They did find the shotgun down the road a ways. And somebody thought they saw a figure of a man running off down through the woods, but there was no witnesses. So basically, here we go, August 1912. By this point, you've got 3 murders. You've got a town heck bent on killing a guy, whether he's guilty or innocent, and you still don't know who killed this young woman. And you still don't know who killed these 2 men. And quite frankly, this town has not even tried to figure out who killed these 2 men. They're like, who cares? They are bent on figuring out who killed this woman. Girls, you haven't said a whole lot. I'm going to take a drink of my coffee.
You think the same person that killed the brother is the same one that killed the other man? Remember, who was it that was killed by 2 men? Was that the investigator?
The investigator, Ben Walker, and then Walter. Right.
You think that was one of the same people?
I'm sure they're all, because you have a whole community that believes that this guy killed this young, beautiful woman in the most hideous of ways. And they are determined. And if the police hadn't stepped in, even though the police thought he was guilty, the police stepped in. If that sheriff hadn't stepped in, they would have hung him that night in a tree down from his house, even though they didn't know. And then what's scary, we're going to get into this trial. So again, this brother is having to face trial, and he has nobody on his side because the whole town's against him. And now his brother and this detective that had, his champion has been killed. The detective, Ben Walker's been killed and discredited. And now his brother stood up to be his champion, and now his brother's killed, and he has to go to court anyways. It doesn't matter that he just lost his brother. And so he's like, you're going to court anyways, and we're going to hang you because we hate you. This is this is small town Mississippi justice. This is what
how
he's
they
facing.
did it.
It is. I mean, total lynch mob. So when we're talking 1910 through 1912 and we say lynch mob, we're talking guys with pitchforks and fire. We're talking a full-on lynch mob like you see in the movies. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about, people that are going to shout and throw stuff at your car. We're talking people that were going to kill this young boy. Okay. So he goes on to court. Okay. So the next morning he's in court. Doesn't matter that his brother bled out in his yard trying to draw water. Doesn't matter that he hasn't even got to bury his brother or grieve over his brother or nothing. This 18-year-old kid is on trial for his life again, and there's no hope for him whatsoever. So this is what we're going to go through. And I want to go through all of the things that they were holding against him. And then we're going to show you that all of those things fell apart, and we're going to find out what happens. First of all, before I get into all that, girls, you have anything to say? Because I've been doing all the talking.
Well, I've been thinking Janie's death may have nothing to do with the other two murders because they were brothers and someone was getting in too deep and the brother was going to take over that, so he got shot. So I'm not sure if those two really have anything to do with her.
They do. They do. They do, because they were trying to prove that the man that the town was bent on killing was innocent, and the town wasn't going to let them. So they are both definitely tied into Janie's murder. They weren't the same people. So
Right.
whoever murdered Janie was a different person or person.
Yeah, that's what I meant. And the brother, I think he got killed solely because he was taking over what his brother was doing.
Right.
And that couldn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got different killers here, but yes, I know what you're saying. Yeah, they're related into the fact that the town was going to kill the wrong guy, whether he was guilty or innocent, and so you want to think, okay, well, don't they care about justice? And in their minds, this is what they were chasing. They didn't care. So so here we go. We are August 12th. The next morning, he has to go and sit and face all these people again. The whole courtroom is jammed packed full. You've got people outside shouting and yelling. You've got police inside and out trying to keep the peace. And he's 20 years old by now. He's 20 years old. He's sitting there. He's been convicted and of murder, and then they dropped it. Now he's back up fighting for his life again. And you're going to get a lot more information than they had the first time around, because they are in a town that's 90 miles away. And so you've got a judge that doesn't care. You've got a judge that's not a part of the vigilante mob. And you're going to find out that two of the main witnesses that the prosecution used the first time around are actually the people that we believe may have actually killed her. So you've got the actual killers being false witnesses towards this man that the whole town is trying to lynch. So they've definitely got conflict of interest there. Of course, they're going to try to convince you that it's Swinton when they were actually the ones that did this. So we're going to find out that Swinton had a pretty solid alibi. You're going to find out that he had been plowing with all morning long. Him and a group of friends actually went down to the creek to cool off. They cooled off for a few minutes and swam. And then they went back to, and they said they swam until 2:35 p.m. Okay, so this is about the time that Janie's in the general store. Now, Alonzo was one of the friends that actually stuck around. They went back to Swinton's house to draw water to get something to drink, and then they were going to go back out into the fields and plow again. So he was with him until 3:30, and then they split off to do their farm chores. But he saw him as of 3:30. Now, Swinton's sister actually saw him at 3:45. So he had an alibi up until almost 4 o'clock. So they say they didn't believe that he had time to do this. And then so supposedly he killed her. He hit her. She ran off, and then he attacked her again. And then he attacked her the third time at the final place and left her there. Okay, so this is going to take some time. It was a ways away from where he was at the farm plowing. They didn't think that the timeline, he had enough time before she was noticed missing and the farmers gathered together to look for her. So that one is, well, maybe. So you think, okay, that could be. That brings in a little bit of doubt, which is what the defense is trying to do. They're trying to bring up enough doubt to where this jury isn't for sure about this. So the next thing that they held against him was the fact that when they went to find his clothes and they took his clothes and his boots and everything, they found a woman's handkerchief. Now, the mother swore up and down that was Janie's handkerchief. Okay, well, here's how that handkerchief came to be with this man. Now, this man, they all rode around in horse and buggies. On the 4th of July, the whole community got together and had a big shindig, whatever you want to call it. The whole town got together and they had a party. in a little bonfire and everything. So you had guys and girls, teenagers pairing up in all these different buggies, hanging out, all the things teenagers do around this bonfire. Everybody was in each other's buggies, whatever. Well, by the time the night was over, this woman's handkerchief ended up in his buggy. Didn't know whose it was. He kind of forgot about it. Didn't ever find out who it belonged to. Okay. Well, the mother swore up and down that was Janie's handkerchief. Come around, and the prosecution brings out the handkerchief and brings out an identical handkerchief, and the mother can't say for sure which one's her daughter's. Come to find out, this handkerchief was not, this handkerchief was a mass-produced handkerchief. There were hundreds of them out there. There was no, she didn't embroidery her initials or anything like that. There was actually nothing the mother could prove that was her daughter's handkerchief. Okay. So that was one of the main key things that they said, well, he had to do it because he had her handkerchief, and we know she left the house with that handkerchief. Okay. And I want to know how many times I can say handkerchief in one sentence. So I was like, who even has handkerchiefs anymore? So, but anyway, so this was one piece of evidence that was completely dismissed by the time it came through. But it was one thing that they had circumstantial evidence that they had proven his guilt beyond a shadow of a doubt the first time. Okay, so one, he has an alibi. It's going to be really hard for him to fit there and be in that spot in that time and do that terrible thing before the time runs out. Second thing, the handkerchief, not really his. Now, the mother gets up in the same time that she's on stand. Not only can she not identify that handkerchief as definitely her daughter's, she also makes a statement that completely destroys. See, the whole concept of this, they said that he killed her and that he hated her father because her father wouldn't let them date. And he also, he killed her because he wanted her. Okay. And that he wanted a relationship with her. Well, Janie's mom, while she's on stand being questioned about this handkerchief, she's questioned, was there any animosity between the families, Swinton's families and your families? Like, oh no, he's a good kid. Oh, well, wait, you're on the prosecution side. You can't say the defendant's a good kid. Then she says, no, there was no animosity between the families. No, he didn't have a relationship with my daughter. And no, he never had any problems with my husband. So there completely destroys the entire motive that these people were going to lynch this man for. So the prosecution's witness actually helped the defendant. She couldn't verify the handkerchief, and then she completely did away with this so-called motive. So again, this 18-year-old boy, now he's 20, he's breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief here because on the stand, she's just actually helped him more than she has the prosecution. Okay, next thing, the boots. They said that in the first trial, that Swinton's boots matched the footprints at the crime scene. Now, we all know, you girls, and I know that everybody and the dogs had trampled through that crime scene, and they found out that there were 3 crime scenes. None of them were cordoned off. Nobody waited for anybody to investigate. So everybody had plowed through those crime scenes, but somehow one good footprint was supposedly from the killer. Okay, so take away the fact that you can't guarantee that was actually the killer's footprint because 10, 15 people have probably walked through there. If that was actually the killer's footprint, okay. His boot, still, they brought his boots in. They measured his boots. They looked at the tread patterns on the boots. None of it matched that footprint in the mud. So the first time around, they said, well, his boot prints match, so he must be the killer. They bring him in and they actually measure it. There is no comparison whatsoever. They did not match up. They didn't come close. Okay, so he's supposedly guilty because of a handkerchief that nobody can prove is Janie's. He's guilty because he had boots that matched the footprints, which didn't match the footprints. And then he also had this big motive that he loved this teenage girl and he hated her dad. All of that's dismissed. Now, you start to wonder why is this town hating this kid so much? Why is this town hating them? Was there some kind of family feud going on? Why are they hating on this kid so bad? So the other thing they said was that he was acting funny during the search. Okay. They wanted to know, they said, well, they wanted to search this certain area, and he told them not to search that area because he had already done it. And then come to find out she was found in that area. That was the narrative that was given in the first trial. Come to find out, he never said that. Someone asked him where he searched. He's like, well, I've searched over here. And the guy says, okay, I'll search over there. That's not telling them. And come to find out, she was found half a mile away from where he had searched. So no, he did not.
That's not even in the area.
No. So he didn't tell them, I've searched there, don't look, so he could hide this crime scene. Someone asked him, well, where have you searched? I searched this side of the road. Okay, well, I'll search that side of the road since you've searched this side of the road. That was the conversation. And then it was blown out of proportion and twisted to say he was hiding a crime scene. Come to find out, her body was found nearly half a mile away from where he said he had searched. So again, you've got something in the rumor mill. And this is something that I thought this would be a good case to talk to you guys about, because how many of you cases, I've got Marion Tate, I've got Barbara Hall, I've got Kimberly Lotz, I've got Karen Langston, I've got a few more that I've missed, I'm sure. They're all mothers, victims, family members of cases that we're talking about it from Madison County, Missouri. Okay. And people want to feed into the rumor mill. They want to hear everything about the rumor mill, and they take the rumor mill as fact. Now, as a investigator, you need to hear the rumor mill. I'm not saying discount the rumor mill. I'm saying take it in and put it on the shelf with everything else and see how it ties in, because you can't take the rumor mill as fact and let it run with you, or you're going to be a freight train running off the tracks 90% of the time. Okay. So you hear all of these things while you're investigating these cases, and you have to understand, okay, I'm not going to get emotionally involved in this narrative. I'm going to put it in a jar. I'm going to set it on the shelf. I'm going to keep looking. Now, if my facts come up and that jar matches, I'm getting that jar back down. Okay. Otherwise, you take it, put it in a file folder, put it in your filing cabinet, and you put it there and you leave it there. Because what happens is the rumor mill gets stirred up by local people. They want to talk about it over dinner. They want to talk about it over drinks at the bar. They want to talk about it after church. They want to gossip about it here and gossip about it there. The problem is every time you tell a story, it's slightly different. Even when you're telling the story, by heart. Okay.
Yep. It's like whisper down the alley.
It's just a little bit different. So this is one case where you got an 18-year-old kid back in 1910 who literally almost was killed by a lynch mob because of the rumor mill that turned out to be completely and totally false. Okay. So this is why you always want to, you hear those things, you take those things, you set them aside, and then you follow the evidence. And if it goes back to that file, then open it up. If it doesn't, you just set it there and leave it there. So this is where you have to understand, this is one drastic example where the rumor mill is deadly. Okay. Not that you need to discount the rumor mill, because there's always usually some nuggets of truth here and there that you will find, but you have to go by the evidence, not the rumor mill. Okay, girls, you have something to say before I finish?
James Tate just asked a question. So what was brother charged? Was brother charged with his brother's murder? No, he wasn't charged with his murder.
Okay. James asked, was the brother charged with his brother's murder, and the investigators murdered who was charged with those murders, in my opinion? I'd like to know that. Okay, I think what you're asking, because that's kind of a tongue twister. Hi, Grey Wolf. Thanks for signing on. I think what you're asking was the brother charged with his own brother's murder? No. The brother actually was trying to stand up for his brother in court. So you've got Walter and you've got Walker. So you've got two there. It's hard to get the names. But basically, you've got Ben Walker, who's a detective, who found out who he believed was actually the two killers, who was in the area, who lived in the area, who were related to the person that she was going to go see. Two people, and then he brings them back, and then the charges are dropped. He's arrested for a BS charge, and then nothing ever happens to those charges. A few days later, he's killed at the person's house where he's staying, and then the brother, Walter, is actually trying to pick up that torch and keep running to defend his brother, and he's killed as well. So that's basically the way that works. So the last thing that they tried to say, so all these things, I tried to make a list of all of the things that they said he did. They said he checked there and he was telling them not to look there. That wasn't true. They said he went home. This was the last thing they had to say. They said, well, he was acting suspicious because he went home and took a bath and changed his clothes while the brother was still looking. Well, what they don't say is the whole town had stopped looking. The brother just couldn't take it, and he kept looking. He was the only person who kept looking. Well, so everybody went home, and I guarantee you everybody took a bath, But this man had worked all day, had gone to swim in the creek, and then he'd gone to work some more, and then he had looked and searched for this missing person until 1 o'clock in the morning, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. There was a drizzly rain, so everything was muddy and nasty. He gets home, he wants to take a bath and change his clothes, so there's nothing suspicious about that either. So all of these things that they had.
Well, I kind of find it funny. He's taking a bath at that late. Who's watching him?
Yeah, I'm sitting there going, why are you watching him take a bath? But this is my thing. To me, this is where this whole story, they still don't know who killed Janie Sharp. She still has relatives nearby. Swinton, actually, his family ended up moving out and selling all the property there. But like I said, this case is still going. It's still being talked about because, like I said, I sent it out to my newsletter, and immediately I got someone says, hey, my grandma knew her, And so what Brewer Pearson says, did you find William McCulley's 2016 book, Murder on Rural Hill, to be well researched? What I seen of it, yes, was pretty well researched. But the problem with it is there are 2 other books that you can look into that are at the local library. So you've got 3 books, but 2 of them are basically just compilations of all of the newspaper articles and the trial transcripts and all those things. They are just basically compiling all of the information in a book. The problem is you have to still go through all of it to be able to distinguish what's true and what's rumor mill. And so you're still stuck with, okay, you're going to find a lot of discrepancies. And so that's basically the way I feel like those books are. They have a lot of discrepancies in them, but you have to take all 3. So I would suggest you get all 3. Mr. McCulley's book is a good book, but I suggest you get all 3 because you want the whole picture, and then you can weed out the rumor mill and figure out what's truth. Because I always say you need to hear all of the stories, and somewhere right in the middle is where the truth is. So you've got to take in all sides of the case, and then you have to determine which sticks. And someone says it's the spaghetti test. Throw it up against the wall and see what sticks. I was raised by the bleach queen. You wasn't throwing spaghetti on my mom's wall. I would be dead in the backyard. But you say that phrase, and then I'm like, I never threw spaghetti.
I did.
But, you threw spaghetti on the wall, and your mom didn't kill you?
Oh no, I threw spaghetti at a college friend's house on her wall.
And she didn't kill you?
No, they're the ones that suggested it. So I'm like, all right.
I'm like, I might throw it on a person. You're like, can we fight? So we're getting off topic, majorly off topic. But this is one of those cases that I find interesting. I would suggest you get that book and get the other 2 books. I will put a link in the YouTube comments after the show. I'll put a link where you can get all 3 books and you can see all 3 of them. I suggest you get all 3 instead of just 1, because I feel like you're going to get a better overview of the case once you get all 3. And you need to realize that the majority of the information that went through all those newspapers were Marion says I threw spaghetti at my sister. Go girl. No, but see that's the thing. I think you need to get all 3 books because that'll give you a better information. And you have to realize all of the local newspapers were a part of the lynch mob. So all of the papers are going to give you a skewed opinion towards that end. And so you got to realize that they're going to have some specific things correct. You know, the last time she was seen, where she was heading, what time she was supposed to be home. Beyond that, they're not going to have anything else correct because they were their whole view was tainted towards this 18-year-old kid. Marion says, as a child for throwing spaghetti, I got my butt whipped. Barbara says, yes, you did. You're mean. I have a feeling those 2 are sisters.
Yeah.
I have a feeling those 2 are sisters. Well, if it makes you feel better, if we ever meet and you want to get in a spaghetti fight, I'll throw spaghetti at both of you and make it even. How about that? No, I've never thrown spaghetti or food in my life. So, you know, it might be fun for once. So I have a couple announcements I want to throw out. I already talked to you about the newsletter link. If you're not part of my Racketeer newsletter, make sure you get on there, and that'll give you the updates of everything I've got new going on. Also, make sure and check out our coffee affiliate link for Bones Coffee. That helps me make more videos. But then also tomorrow, I've got some exciting news. Barbara says, no, I'm out. Oh, Joanne says, I hope it doesn't have sauce. And Barbara says, no, I'm out. I don't have any sauce or any noodles.
Venus, I think I know what book you, what with the Zodiac. I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, Venus is always interested in the Zodiac killer. Venus, sometime I will get on a call and we'll discuss the Zodiac killer because Venus is dying to talk to me about the Zodiac killer. So, Marion says we can try to have fun. You need to. Life is hard. Life is full of trauma and disappointments. You've got to have some fun. You've got to find some way to make life get yourself a break. In fact, this is part of my announcements. One announcement is tomorrow I've got a new audiobook that's going to be submitted for the final review. I'm ecstatic. My Dixie Mafia book, that's the wrong cover. I don't know if I have the new cover. I don't have the new cover. Dawn of the Dixie Mafia. This is the old cover. Dawn of the Dixie Mafia book. I found the perfect Southern gravelly voice. This gentleman, I had a lot of people narrate and give auditions, and they were trying to sound Southern. I'm like, you guys just sound like a bunch of Yankees trying too hard.
Yeah.
I can say that I'm from Texas.
You need a real one.
I need a real Southern guy that's got some decent voice to him. And I found the perfect voice. He's got it's wonderful, and he loved the material. He couldn't wait. He's actually submitting it tomorrow. So I will be uploading some videos, clips, so you can hear him narrate my book. It's very exciting because he narrated just the author's note and the preface of the book, and I'm like, I can't wait to hear what happens next. And I'm like, stupid, you know what happens next, you wrote it, so I'm excited for you guys to hear it. Next thing, we're talking about bringing some joy, because all of my content is really dark. I am a life coach for victims' family members, so I have other things that we can talk about. One thing I want to talk about is laughter therapy. For those of you that have suffered the hardest and the most, make sure you find time to laugh 10-15 minutes a day. That literally gives you better heart health. They say if you laugh real hard for 3 minutes, you've actually given your heart an exercise as if you'd worked on a rowing machine at the gym for 20 minutes. Laughter really is the best medicine. So I am going to start a new series. It's actually an old series that I had a long time ago that I never really got to do much for videos for. This is Seriously Stupid Criminal Stories. I'm going to start doing a series of short videos talking about seriously stupid criminal stories in the news. one seriously stupid criminal story that I will just relate to you this evening to give you a little bit of a chuckle before we get off. There was a gentleman who decided he was going to rob a bank, and he decided his weapon of choice was going to be a toilet plunger. So he walks into the local bank, he whips out this toilet plunger, he shakes it in the teller's face and says, "Give me all of your money. I have a brown paper sack." So he gives the woman the brown paper sack. She puts all of the money in it because they teach you as a teller, don't argue, just give them the money. Which I think in this case, I probably would have argued because I was a banker. And but anyway, so this gentleman, he goes in, he gets money. She fills up the bag with everything in her till. She hands him back the paper bag. He sticks the plunger in on top of the cash. He walks out the bank front door and walks down the sidewalk. He doesn't run away. He doesn't get in a vehicle. He just continues walking. The police find him a few minutes later, carrying the brown paper sack with the toilet plunger sticking out of the bag. So this is one of those cases you're sitting here going, what the heck? Doesn't make sense. And so basically, I'm thinking though, as a teller, I used to be a teller. I used to be I used to have my own glass office. I was a banker for like 10 years. I'm thinking in my sarcastic, little Texas rebel way, they teach you as a teller, for one, you're supposed to watch them as they walk out the door so you can see how high and how short they are because you've got little marks on the doors and things. But you're supposed to just give them the money. You're not supposed to argue. You're just supposed to give them the money. But they say the money's not as worth as much as your life, so just give them the money. We'll track them down. But I'm thinking this old man comes into the bank to my teller window with a toilet plunger. I'm going to not be intimidated. I'm going to say, well, buddy, I'm sorry. I'm not worried about your toilet plunger. I do have a bathroom down the hallway that could use some work, though. Take that down there. I ain't going to give him no money. I'm like, what are you going to do with me? Beat that over my head? I'm like, what are you going to do with a toilet plunger? So anyways, this man succeeds in robbing a bank, does not succeed in getting away, and ends up spending 20 years in prison. So I'm going to start a series of those just to give you a little bit of laughter therapy, still true crime edition. So that's a new series I'm going to be starting. Watch out for that. It'll give you a little bit of humor in with the true crime, all of the gore and dark stuff we talk about. Hopefully that'll brighten your day a little bit. So that's what we're going to be starting. There's going to be a new audiobook, a new Seriously Stupid Criminal series. I guess that's all I have. Let's see. Grey Wolf says, LOL. Wow. That's like the guy who robbed a Waffle House with a pitchfork down in Norcross, Georgia, a couple of years ago. They caught him on I-75 south of Knoxville. Yeah. I've got a whole bunch of them. This book is filled with seriously stupid criminal stories, seriously dumb disguises, seriously strange things to steal. One group of bandits decided to steal a box truck that they thought were flat screen DVDs. They drive it over the Canadian-American border down into Maine. They opened the box truck and found out that they had $1 million or so worth of feminine products. So they had a crate full of feminine products instead of flat screen TVs. So that it's just humor. And the reason why I want to do this is because I'm a crime writer. I'm all these things, but I'm a victim's advocate first. And I want you to find moments of joy. I want you, even though you've been through trauma, I want you to find a way to step through the trauma and become the warrior that you are. I want to help you work through that and go ahead and live your life and become more than a trauma victim. So I hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching True Crime Tuesday. I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.